On Thursday, December 4th, we have this month's full moon happening in the sign of Gemini, and it's actually the last full moon of 2025, and it's a super full moon, so it's going to be felt extra intense. And this full moon is kind of interesting because it's not aspecting any other planets in this lunation chart, but it is squaring both the north and the south nodes in Pisces and Virgo respectively. And so it's kind of like, actually this is the halfway point between eclipse seasons. And so this signals like, a checkpoint for us. And so as always, full moons are times where the sun and the moon are sitting directly opposite each other in the sky, and the sun is able to fully illuminate the moon. And so full moons are associated with things being illuminated and revealed, and it's also a time where past manifestations are coming to fruition, and it's a time of culmination, and so it's a time of endings. And so because of that, it's also a time of release. But also keep in mind that with endings comes new beginnings. So with things being illuminated, it means that things are being brought to our conscious awareness that we usually kind of miss. Think about a full moon at night, how we can see much more than when like it's a new moon and we can't see anything. And so, with these things being like, it heightens our awareness, it also heightens our sensitivity. And so full moons tend to be associated with like, just times where we're feeling more sensitive. And so with that heightened sensitivity, it's also a time to release and kind of, get out some of that pent up emotional and energetic energy. And so as we're releasing, it's kind of like we're letting go of those things that no longer serve us. And, I always think of full moons as a time to like, have that really deep cry that you've been needing, but also like, laughter and like a really deep belly laugh. That's a really great way to, kind of get out that energy, and like that just helps kind of move that energy. And also like singing and screaming into a pillow, or maybe it's dancing and moving your body, and it could also be like yoga, or going for a stroll down into your neighborhood, or whatever it might be. And so with this full moon happening in the sign of Gemini, that means that it's illuminating all things Gemini. And so that means like our ideas and our thoughts and our perceptions and our thought patterns and those stories that we tell ourselves, and how we communicate with ourselves and how we communicate with others. All of that is on deck. And so some of like those limiting stories or those limiting thoughts that we have about ourselves that are like, negative and unhelpful, they might be really kind of coming up on this full moon, but it's being brought to our awareness so that we can like, name it, and then, work through it and process it, and then, release it once and for all. Because this full moon is really reminding us of, the power of our thoughts and our words. Because when you think about it, everything starts as a thought. And so we can, use our minds as like a cage to hold ourselves back from experiencing life, or we can use it as a tool of liberation and, use it as a way to create a beautiful life for ourselves. And so this full moon is really an invitation